Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for Making Math Fluency Fun, Strategies and Activities to Use Today. We are so excited to have all of you here. Thank you again for joining us. We're just going to give everybody like a minute or two to join us. And while we wait, I would love to hear all of you from all of you in the chat. Why don't you go ahead and let us know kind of like where you're from, what grades do you teach, maybe even what made you join today's webinar. I'd love to hear from you. Hi, Sarah. Thanks for joining us. There we go. Hello, everybody. Ah, so many incredible people. Boston, Wyoming. Incredible. Thank you all so much for joining us. Well, it already has been about a minute since we were supposed to go ahead and kick things off. So I'm actually not going to wait any longer so we can get into this incredible, great content. But before I pass things over to our speakers, I want to go over just a few helpful tips with all of you so you can make the most out of today's webinar. If you would like to access closed captionings for this webinar, click the CC button in the bottom of your Zoom tray, and that should enable subtitles for you for your duration throughout the webinar. We love your participation. I'm loving, like, there just seems like such incredible, like, great, amazing people in the chat already today. So thank you for that incredible participation from the very beginning. Continue to utilize the chat throughout the webinar. We'd love to hear from you. However, if you have a question that you're like, I absolutely need John and David to answer this question, or I will not be able to go on throughout my day, please drop that question into the Q&A feature of Zoom. And if we have time, we will do a Q&A at the end. But if you drop that in the chat, there's a chance somebody might miss it. I do my best to grab all questions that weren't answered throughout the webinar. But if you're like, I just need this answered, drop it in the Q&A. That being said, if you should receive a certificate of attendance from Zoom and an email from us with the recording of this webinar. So keep an eye out for those things throughout the next couple days. But that is about all I have for you. So I'm going to go ahead and pass things over to our incredible speakers, David and John. David, John, thank you both so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. It's great to be here. Let me pull up my screen. John, do you want an intro while I'm pulling up, and then I'll take it from there?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm John. Excited to get to be here. I'm a STEM product specialist with Amplify. So, looking forward to spending some time talking about the different ways that we think about fluency, kind of in the moment fluency and lesson fluency, and then what all that means in terms of a lot of the resources that Amplify Classroom is all about in terms of putting out content for teachers to support instruction. So, yeah, really looking forward to being here.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, John. Hi, everyone. I'm Dave from outside of Boston, Massachusetts. I work on a number of products in Amplify Classroom, Polypad virtual manipulatives, and math fluency practice. Really excited to be here with everyone for this webinar. As John said, I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about daily fact fluency practice and some options that are available with our free resource, Math Fluency Practice. Then I'll turn it over to John, who will spend some time walking through some examples in lessons where you can have students engage in fluency practice in a number of ways. And then I'll close it out with some warm-ups and some number talks. We'll have some time for some Q&A at the end, and looking forward to diving in. So again, as Ryan said, feel free to use the chat with any questions that come up, or use the Q&A feature in Zoom, and we'll be sure to pay attention to that. So with that, let's dive in. The first free resource that I want to talk about as a way to practice facts is Math Fluency Practice. And so Math Fluency Practice is a part of Amplify Classroom that is totally free for teachers and students around the world to help students with their math facts. It uses the scientifically proven theory of spaced repetition to help students learn their math facts. We'll talk more about spaced repetition in a minute. And each flashcard, you can see some examples here on the screen. I'll show you and invite you to explore some more on your own. Each flashcard where the students see a math fact also contains a visual representation of that fact. So when the students are thinking about 2 times 4, they can see a representation of that on the card. These are made in collaboration with Dan Finkel over at Math for Love. And as I said, it's free for all to use. So I'm going to jump over to fluency.amplify.com. If someone wants to drop that link in the chat, that would be great. It's fluency.amplify.com. And I'll show you how you can preview what these cards are like before you decide if you want to assign them to students. So what I'm about to show you is not what students see. This is just like the preview page for teachers. So here I am at fluency.amplify.com. Thanks, Ryan. And you can make a free Amplify Classroom account. So you can sign in as an educator and then make classes for your students to join. But when you are logged out, you get this option to just preview all the different flashcard sets that are available. There are 5 free Fact Fluency sets, and each one has a number of decks in them that show a different visual representation of that fact family. So for example, here I am on multiplication by heart. I'll show a demo of the cards that have a rectangular array of the multiplication fact. So I'll just click this demo button. Here's 10 times 4. I can enter in the number. If I get it right, I get a little pop of color, and I move on to the next card. If I make a mistake, there's a little wiggle. I get an option to try again. And if I get it right, I move on to the next card. If I get it wrong twice, let's say I think this is 16 or something, you can see on the cards there's a little like hint to that question. I see that the first row is 7, the second one is 14, and the next card doesn't appear for the student automatically. They click this button so the next card can appear. So that's an example of multiplication by heart. I'll click this arrow to go on to the next one. Here is addition and subtraction by heart 1. I just want to show you an example of this deck where some of the flashcards are in fact interactive for students. So here is a 10 frame, and I can drag these dots into the frame to make a 5, 6, 7. Maybe at this point I know that 2 more makes 9. And as the students move through the decks, the visuals for the cards go from more concrete to more abstract. So if I go all the way to the end here, it's just these number bars. There isn't any interactivity on these cards. It's just a visual of that fact. So there's 9. So that's like a preview of the cards. Let me go back to the slides for a moment. Again, there are these 5 flashcard sets. There's a numbers by heart for kindergarten students, which is focused on counting and subitizing. Addition and subtraction 1 is facts up through 10. Addition and subtraction 2 is facts up through 20. And then multiplication and division by heart. Each set has a number of decks here that you can see on the screen. And there's a different number of cards in each of the decks. So this set has 29 cards in the first deck and 65 in the next deck and so on. Students and teachers don't really need to pay attention to this. This all sort of happens behind the scenes, but I just want to share a little bit of like how it works. So if you decide to use this with students, you have this understanding. Students automatically are assigned 30 cards on a daily basis. And I'm going to show you a student experience in a moment here. This is the theory of spaced repetition. In general, if a student gets a fact correct, we are going to keep that card, we're going to keep it hidden for a certain amount of time until we think it's just about to go out of their memory and they need to see that fact again. So the first time they see it, if they get it right, it's going to move into box B, and it'll stay in box B for like a day or so. And then when they see that fact again, if they get it correct, it goes into box C, and it'll live kind of hidden in box C for 2 days or so. And the more they get it correct, the longer and longer the time goes until they see that card again. And this is, again, this is based on this theory of spaced repetition. That's not specific to math fluency practice. That's a proven scientific theory of how we can commit any facts to our long-term memory. That's the goal with these, of getting math facts into the students, into their long-term memory. If at any point they get the fact incorrect, it goes all the way back to the beginning and they start the process all over again. But students don't necessarily see that. It just sort of happens automatically behind the scenes. They just log on every day, they get their 30 cards, they complete them. The program keeps track of where the cards are and what day it is and what cards to show on a given day. So from the student standpoint, I'm gonna go to my son's account. My son is now a sophomore in high school, so he doesn't practice these anymore. He has committed them to long-term memory, but I use it often as a demo account. And so here is his account in Amplify Classroom. I am logged in as him. Let me just give it a refresh here. His name is Ryan. And so these are his cards for the day. If he was a first grade student doing these cards, you can see that he has this card of 9 plus 1. You might notice in the upper corner, faintly, it says it's in box C. So this is a card that I demoed this account a bunch, and I've seen this card a few times. I keep getting it right, so it's now in box C. I can get this right. There's a progress bar at the top that tells me how many cards of my 30 I have left that day, and so on. So I would continue through my cards. I would do all 30. When I finish them all, confetti comes down the screen. The goal is about 5 minutes a day of daily practice. And again, students just have to log on to fluency.amplify.com, sign in as a student. They also can get there from Amplify Classroom, but it's really like an easy routine in the math classroom. We've heard from teachers who do it at the start of the day when kids are coming in the morning and getting settled, part of their morning work. We've heard from teachers that do it like on your way in from recess, or if they have 5 minutes in between a math block and when lunch starts or something, or you're back from music and you have 10 minutes before lunch. All of those like moments in the classroom. The last thing I'll show, and then I'll turn it over to John, is on the teacher side of things. So here I am in my teacher account. Let me, yeah, here we are. I'm going to go to the apps in Amplify Classroom. Oh, I don't want Polypad, sorry. I wanted Fluency practice. Let me just go here, fluency.amplify.com. Here's my teacher dashboard. Here are my 2 classes. So this is just like the sample class that I made. I'm going to click on that class. Here are my 2 kids. That's Ryan, who I was just doing today. So I'm getting a check that I've done that work. And on the teacher side of things, under assignments is where you choose the set you want your students to be working on. So we saw my son was working in addition, subtraction by heart 1. You can see all of those are checked. But if I wanted to make any changes, turn certain ones on or off, I could do so. If I wanted to assign multiplication by heart to an entire class, I could click this checkbox at the top, hit save. And on the student side of things, they don't need to worry about any of this. They just log on, do their cards for the day, and they're off and running. There's ways to track progress. There's a whole section of help documentation here. So all of that is available. I think in 2025, we had almost 300 million flashcard questions that were answered by people using Math Fluency Practice around the world. So it's been really successful in just 5 minutes a day, daily practice in getting students to get to fact fluency here. There's not an assessment currently as part of Math Fluency Practice. I just saw that question in the chat. We've heard from teachers that will do their own pre and post assessment in a variety of ways, but there's not currently an assessment in the program right now. All right, I will turn it over to John. That was a quick intro to Math Fluency Practice. All sorts of great help documentation available as you want to explore that and have questions.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you, David. As I kind of pivot out of that first little segment, I threw another link in the chat. So if you all want to navigate into that, if you want to follow along with me as I dive into our platform, feel free, but just want to give everybody the opportunity to navigate first so that if you're anything like me, sometimes it's nice to get to click along when someone's modeling you where to find resources. One little quick add-on. David, I know you're thinking about this through the lens of a teacher. I have a first and fourth grader myself, and so something I love about the fluency is just kind of getting to see even what that looks like at home. So if you are someone who's a teacher, but also has your own kiddos that are coming home with you, I really love that flexibility to kind of progress monitor, see how they're doing at home. You can generate accounts even for your own children, so thinking through the lens of your students, but also kind of from that parent perspective, I always really enjoy as well. With that said, I'm just going to go ahead and hopefully queue up my screen, which looks like that's coming through okay. So if you did navigate using that link, classroom.amplify.com, what you will find is this kind of discover page. So the reason I just wanted to start here is to just give you the navigation. One of my goals for our time together is to show you how we kind of view fluency through the lens of curriculum authorship and really how we embed these moments of fluency. So when we think of the three-legged stool, balancing conceptual understanding with procedural fluency as well as application, I wanted to show you a couple of the ways that we've really taken and used a lot of the Polypad interactivity that you may or may not be familiar with in the context of a lot of our free digital lessons. So one of my favorite ways to navigate is just to scroll down the center. Notice it says most popular. If this is a new landing spot for you, there's tons of lessons you can choose from at this most popular lens, all of which are tagged. So you'll notice the grade level. They might be tagged based off topic, grade level. Maybe it's an eighth grade differentiation, but a seventh grade core standard that this lesson is really aligned to. So a lot of really nice connections there. If Polypad is something that you've heard of or not heard of, you can explore Polypad right there. So when David mentioned that the fluency is really embedded throughout classroom.amplify.com, this is really our hub, that main landing place where you're going to find a lot of cool tools, but also free content to really dive into. Something that I've loved is this collection of featured activities that for teachers that are just looking for something to engage based off the seasons. Notice there's Snowflake Studio, a Winter Challenge Marble Slide, a skiing adventure. So these are really designed around the seasons, designed around certain ways that kids just might be excited. I think of these as before that spring break, if you're looking for something to do that might invite students in, just some great collections on this featured activities as well. I'm going to take us into right where it says featured collections, though. So if you're following along with me and navigating down, I'm going to jump into these featured collections and just start by viewing all of those. The reason I like to start here is because personally, I just kind of, if I'm a grade level teacher, which looking in the chat, most of you are coming from some grade level, it seemed like, or a lot of us were. And maybe I'm a K-5 teacher or a pre-K-5 teacher, and I just want to jump in and start to peruse some of these lessons. So when I click into that collection, which I just did, you'll notice that it's broken down by grade. So again, a whole lot of free content. Notice you'll see the total number of activities. So if I'm a kindergarten teacher, there are 37 activities within a couple collections that I could start to engage with. For the purposes of kind of thinking through, I know there's a lot of different lessons and grade levels represented. I'm just going to take us into grade two and jump into one of our lessons that we as a team really always love to highlight, which is ways to make 10. The reason that I love this is I know Polypad was getting some love in the chat, is the way that we've really purposely built this lesson. So as I pivot into this lesson, you'll notice if I was logged in, I intentionally am not logged in because I wanted to give you all the same experience of jumping in and not being signed as a teacher. But if you do choose to sign up for free, you would have access and the ability to assign this to students to start to play around with this. So within this activity, we're giving students a couple different opportunities to engage in the warm up. But where you'll see this lesson progress is kind of using a pattern-based approach. By the time we hit screen 6, 7, and 8, if I were to pivot into that, what you're going to see is the opportunity for students to start to really develop fluency in the context of this lesson. So here we have this little visualization of a millipede, and that millipede is really going to have the flexibility or the option to have to cross the screen. When we go that route, I'm going to choose some blocks. So choose the block to help the millipede make 10. Oops, I think my screen's loading up here. When I click on that, oh man, hold on. Let me refresh this really quick. Were you seeing that weird, David?
I was, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Let me back forward one screen. I'm just kind of curious unless this is a me issue.
I don't think it's a me issue. I don't think it's a you issue, unfortunately, right now.
Yeah. Well, typically within this animation, which you would see is a little visualization for a millipede that would be on this side that I could select the block. Purpose of this is to give students tools. So very similar to how we were developing fluency within the program is to really give students the opportunity to engage with and click on some visual representations in addition to the fact. Moving beyond that, This screen then removes some of the lifts. So notice that the numbers are now what's down here on the bottom. So we start out with kind of using the visual blocks to help students make those connections. I would need to fill the respective tiers here. So in this given activity, we're kind of progressing from the visual block representation into the actual specific values. So again, trying to be strategic with the way that we develop and then progress from a more concrete block-based representation into the specific values and tools that we're highlighting. Just a quick example from grade two that I really love in terms of how we can invite students in and do that in the context of the lesson. If I backtrack out really quickly one step, what you will see is that on each of these respective screens, I jumped into the middle. We really intentionally build the lessons with fluency in mind, knowing that we want students to have some conceptual understanding. That's that pattern block approach that we're taking. This can be done hands-on or in the digital platform. But ultimately, when we're building in, we really want to ensure that we're jumping in and supporting students in the context of fluency development in the moment. Just to kind of continue exploring some additional grade level, if I pivot right, and there's a couple ways you can navigate, I'm going to take us right back to those collections and maybe just pop into another grade level. So when I do that and I pivot out of grade two where I was, I'm right back to that same center navigation with a variety of lessons. We'll see how I do with grade four. If I pivot into grade four, you'll notice a lot of those same opportunity to investigate different lessons. I love this lesson called Chop It. This is another one where we're really thinking about locating fractions less than one on number lines. Same sort of structure. We can dive in there, we can explore. I'm going to keep scrolling down though a little bit just to kind of highlight the different um, combination of lessons that we really have. So if you're searching by topic, you can see that listed here. You can search by grade. David, have you ever played around with double decomposition? This is one that I love quite a bit. Have you seen this one?
I can't like pull it out of the top of my head. I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
Double
So
decomposition.
double decomposition is a grade four lesson, and we're really working on using different strategies to multiply two-digit numbers using area diagrams. So one of the things I love is that we give students something to really manipulate. So kids start off and they just get to drag this around. So notice as I change this area model, I'm getting to see how this really changes over time. As a student, I'm going to get to make a claim. So maybe I drag this model and I'm like, I'm just going to go, yeah, maybe I'll do 20. I like my 20s and I'll do my 11s and something like that. When I progress out of this warm up, it's now gonna give me a different opportunity. So drag this to decompose. So maybe I'm thinking, okay, I get how this model works. And I do think this really connects to the 5 minutes of fluency each day in terms of like giving some students something visual connected to numeracy, right? So connecting fluency and numeracy. When students move forward, they actually then have to complete all those values. So we're going to provide what we like to call visual feedback. So when I'm looking at this product, maybe I don't know that. Maybe I'm just going to guess and say, let's call that 60 because I'm a kid who's just going to start with 60. Maybe I'm going to call this one B is 4. Maybe I think that's 80. I'll try 5 as 150, and then we'll leave this one as 10. When I go to check this, I'm going to get to see how each of these little values fills up. So I'm seeing that responsive feedback to what is the area of each component within there. So I love that piece that students, again, have something visual to connect to as they're thinking about the fluency operations that we're developing.
That's awesome. That's such a great visual. And like I love that to be fluent as a math student, right? We've talked about like both the fact fluency, like we want students to know 4 times 5 is 20 and have that fact like really quickly so they can do a task like this and not be bogged down by the math facts. But also being fluent is being able to take this two-digit multiplication problem and think about it in lots of different ways.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that add-on, David. And I really love too that students have to make a choice. Notice how the choice I made on the previous screen, sometimes people don't pick that up. That tracks forward with me. Oftentimes kids will just drag this around without thinking, they might leave themselves something like that. But if I were to leave myself something like this, when I go to that next screen, that's going to get a little more complicated in terms of the value. So we're really pushing on this idea of like, using friendly numbers, being flexible. And I love to me, that term number flexibility is always one that I try to push on and drive on because I want my students to be fluent, but ultimately I want them to be flexible because I think that's going to transfer to so many other domains. If I were to carry forward in this lesson a little bit, you'll also notice that on screen 9, so if you're still kind of tracking me, I started just looking at that model that we're using, but when I jump to screen 9, you're going to notice that there are what we call kind of one of our unlimited challenges. So there's a bunch of different challenges on the screen. So this is where we're introduce the tools, giving students the skills, but ultimately when I want my class to have some time to kind of self-pace and develop fluency, this is a great space for that to occur. So students can check their work, they can receive that feedback. So again, just a really nice screen where we can embed opportunities for students to develop in the moment skill-based fluency as it pertains to those specific standard skills, etc., that we're really wanting to leverage and support. So just a nice example of one of our screens that embeds multiple problems. I'm going to show a grade 7 example of this too that I really like as well. However, just kind of continuing our tour, we took a little look at a grade 2, a grade 4. I would love to highlight something from one of our activities called Bullseye. So if I scroll down a little ways and find my activity called Bullseye, let me navigate here. I should have left myself a tab. This is all about using the coordinate plane and developing fluency around coordinate pairs and location of coordinate pairs. So in this activity, students are introduced to this idea of a dartboard or bullseye. They're having interactive opportunities developed as this lesson progresses. But notice as I continue through this lesson as a learner, I'm going to get to this screen 6 here. And this is what's called one of our class gallery or a challenge creator screen. So in this space, we're giving students the ability to create their own problem and then share that problem with the class. So if I were to make my own challenge, you're going to see that I have the opportunity to design a dartboard of my choosing. Maybe I like this triangular one. I'm going to pick that dartboard and hit next. Now I'm going to have to make some choices about where I want. So how many darts do I want my classmates to have to use? I want them to have to throw 3 darts. And then I get to pick a target score that can be reached with 3 darts. So again, we're forcing students to have to think and make some claims here. So, ooh, maybe with 3 darts, I could get 200. I'll just give my class, we'll go 400. So if I make this claim of 400, which I just made, and I submit that, that's my choice. I'm saying 400 is something we can do. I'm going to go next. Now I actually have to, as a student, I have to prove that this is true. So before I can submit this to the class, I'm going to have to put in some coordinate points. So maybe I say the point, what would that be? 5. And I'm going to follow 5 up with, let's see, I'm going to do 5, 4, maybe. We're going to do 5, 4 there. That might be a good shot if I'm looking at this. I'm going to throw another point in here. I want to get 100. Ooh, I could get 100 a lot of different ways. Maybe I'll do 4, 3. So I'm going to do the coordinate pair 4. I'll add 3 to that. So let's go 4, oops, 4, 3. So we're going to throw 4, 3 in there. And then lastly, maybe I'll just do 7, 3. I think that'll work as well. So we'll try 7 and I'll add my 7 and 3 in here. So if I want to get my score, I'm going to see those darts start to pop in. I'm going to see how I did with my aim. Looks like I'm doing okay. And it looks like I was pretty successful. So I can submit that to the class gallery. So notice doing this with a group of students, you can probably imagine if you have 25 kids in the class, you're going to have 25 unique problems students will get to work on. So when we're thinking about um, ways to really kind of organically generate problems to give students to then develop fluency around or develop kind of procedural application. To me, there's no better way than investing the students in their own problems, right? If I gave you 25 of these as a teacher and said, here's 25 problems, you're going to get moans and groans, right? But doing it in this way gives students that sense to kind of, again, take ownership of what they're doing and really feel good about it as well. So just wanted to kind of give you another way that we invite and really develop that using this challenge creator. Last but not least, for my middle school,
Can I jump in?
please.
I
Yeah,
taught middle school math for a long time, and I was
yeah,
fortunate enough to both use some of the Try lessons, and also I use the Amplified Desmos math curriculum for my last couple of years. But even with the Try lessons on the challenge creator, there's this amazing moment that John was talking about where the screen gets filled up with all of the challenges that students in the class have made. And then as you complete different challenges from other students, you see under your challenge the number of students in the number of classmates in your class that have completed the challenge of yours. And there's just this natural excitement that builds in the classroom of like, how many challenges did you get completed? How many did you? And like, kids are doing this fluency practice in a really fun, vibrant, exciting way that is just an awesome moment in the classroom. So really encourage you to go try a challenge creator from one of these free try lessons if you haven't experienced it yet.
yeah. Yeah, I love that add-on, David. I also love, I don't know if you had this experience, I used to with my middle schoolers as well, Ton, where they'd want to make the hardest challenge, but the way it's sequenced, they have to actually complete it first. So they would try to like, I'm thinking of solving, they would try to pick these, like gnarly fractions or something that nobody in their right mind really wants to be operationally working with. And they would create this, and then they'd get to that screen and it was like, now you have to do it yourself. And they would always have this like, moment. But I love that realization because then it would force them to go back and adjust the challenge accordingly to one that they actually wanted to complete. So I always thought that was a nice moment for that, eighth grader who was trying to mess with his friends, but it turned into something that they weren't so excited about. So last, I'm just going to give you kind of another quick little example. When I think of my time spent teaching grade seven, solving equations was always something that was like, hey, this is one of those skills that we just need students to really be fluent with, and really ensure that they kind of, can tap into, can support, and work through. So when we're thinking about different ways that we really want to embed fluency, solving inequalities, solving equations, Shear the Sheep's a great example. So if I pivot into this activity, again, starts with a context, works through that. But notice when I get to this screen 9, you'll see this repeated challenge screen. So in this activity, there's an unlimited number of problems built into this screen. So the goal for that is to really give teachers and students that space to continue to work through. They still receive responsive feedback. So if I get this correct, you're going to see something occur. If I get it incorrect, students are going to kind of have that embedded loop into feedback being provided in the moment, but in the moment of the context of the lesson. So something I always like is that full perspective in terms of lesson design, starting with something that gives them conceptually a context to connect to. But ultimately, I want to see my students solving some problems. So I want to ensure that they can get there and that they can apply a skill, apply operational fluency, apply number flexibility using a variety of models. So I feel like that a lot of these free try it lessons that you can see, many of which I'm just kind of highlighting through, some of which you all out there might have seen before, are just another great resource that you have as teachers at your disposal to really tap into and kind of support your learners in that lesson moment, in that warm up moment. And then I know David has a couple other ways that we're going to queue up fluency. So I'll kick it back over to you, David.
Awesome. Thanks, John.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we chatted about fact fluency, could be daily 5-minute practice at any point during the day. Just student on device doing their math facts as a way to get the automaticity of their facts. John talked about some in-lesson, student on device, maybe in pairs, teacher facilitation in these tried lessons as a way to get additional fluency practice. And I'm going to share some examples of like class openers, number talks, and warm-ups. I did notice a Q&A that I was just typing as John called on me, so I'll just share the answer out loud. Does math fluency allow students to do more than 5 minutes? Is it possible they'll just sit on there for several minutes longer? And what if they don't finish their 30 cards? So if they don't finish their 30 cards, the program will know that the next day when they log in again, they'll give them a new set of 30 that will likely include the cards that they didn't finish from the previous day. So it doesn't create a backlog. They just don't complete the cards that day. That's noted on the teacher dashboard, but they'll get a new set of 30. When they finish their 30, they get this message of confetti comes down, says you're done for the day, but there is a continue practicing button where they could get an additional set of 30 to practice for that day. And we are working hard on integers by heart that will be coming out in time for next school year. So I just saw that question, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division of integers for middle school students. Okay, but let me pivot to some class openers and warm-ups, and hopefully you can see the Discover page, the same one that John was sharing. Awesome. So I'm going to share some examples where these are really in the category of the teacher is presenting something on the board and the students are not using a device at all. So they might be talking in their desk groups. Maybe they're standing at a whiteboard in groups. Maybe it's just silent thinking with a turn and talk, however you want to structure that. But these are really designed as student not on device, quick warm up to start class, maybe at the end of class. And so to find the link to these in the search menu here, I'm just going to type Polypad because they're all part of the Polypad virtual manipulatives collection. I'll put this link in the chat in a second. I'm not logged in. Again, you could certainly do this logged in, but as John was saying, it's nice to just show the logged out experience. So I'm seeing exactly what a logged out user would see. I click on Polypad and I get a link to this collection, which I'll just drop in the chat as well. There we go. All right. And in this collection, there is a sub-collection called class openers, warm-ups, and quick games. So I'd love to do a few of these with you. We have a great number of people on the webinar live, so it's certainly not as fun as doing it in person, but maybe you can participate with me in the chat a bit and we can see how we do on these games. Okay, so the first one I want to do is what sum do you see? All right, so I'm going to open that activity. You can see quickly there's versions with 2 dice, 4 dice, and 6 dice. Because we're adults, I'm just going to jump right to the 6 dice version because I think that's the most engaging for adults. So let me show you how this works. But again, for different age students, you could scaffold it up or down based on the number of dice. So I'm going to go to screen 5. I'm going to roll the dice, and I'd like you to calculate in your head the sum of all 6 of these dice, but don't put it in the chat until I say go, right? So I'm gonna roll the dice. You think of the number, but don't spam the chat yet. You can type it in, but don't hit enter until I ask you to. So here we go. I'm gonna roll the dice. What is the sum of those dice? And think about how you saw the sum too. That's the interesting part of this activity. I'd like to focus on that. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Put it in the chat. Oh yeah, I saw a lot of 17s. Awesome. 17s coming in. Anyone want to share in the chat how they saw 17? How did you visualize 17 here? Kind of hard to do this virtually, but imagine in a classroom, you could ask different groups, like, how did you see 17? I'd love to get either one answer in the chat or John, if you want. 5 on top, 5 and 7. Oh, cool. So here, there was someone that said they saw the 5 on the top and then 5 and 7. Awesome. Ooh, I just saw 6 plus 2 plus 2 equals 10. Nice. This 6 and 4 here. Now, notice I can move the dice around. So I could say, oh, a student saw this 10. Really cool. And then there was a 2 and then the 5. Awesome. Okay, that was the quick warm up. I'm going to go to the next screen where the dice are hidden. And so here I'm going to roll the dice. It's going to play a sound effect, which I don't think the sound might be coming through, which is fine. But I'm going to roll the dice a few times. I'm going to roll it again. And now I'm going to flash them for 2 seconds. And I invite you to try to find the sum of the dice in the 2 seconds that you see it. And again, don't put it in the chat yet. Let's give people some good think time. Here we go. Ready? I rarely get it on the first one anyway. So here we go. Here are the dice. Oh, that was a fun one.
Yeah, I got some high values there. I was gonna say those sixes were messing with my head, I
I
think.
know. Ready? Here we go. I'm going to flash it again. Don't put it in the chat yet. All right. One more time. Spam away. What do you got in the chat? Oh, we saw some differences quickly. 24s, 22s, 21s. Love that. Awesome. It would certainly be important if I were doing this when I've gone and done this in classrooms to really set the norms of not shouting it out. It's not about getting the answer first. It's really about thinking about the numbers and trying to find lots of different strategies. Cool. So yes, let's see. Feel free to put in the chat how you saw it. I see 996. Let's see. Oh, there's I wonder how someone saw the 9. Maybe the 5 and the 4. 9 and 9 is 6. That's pretty cool. 9, 10, 5. That's pretty cool. There's a 9. There's a 10. There's a 5. Love that. Yeah, 9, 10, and 5 again. Cool. 9, 9, 6. Awesome. Let's just do one more real quick, and then I'll show you a different activity. Again, this is a great one just to like save the link. You got 30 seconds, you got 2 minutes, you got 3 minutes, do a bunch of these. I've done this a lot, and I found without even trying to, I always just start looking for 10s. And like, what a great thing to have students focus on, right? Like, can you find 10s quickly? So now I'm gonna hide these. I'm gonna roll it again. Let's just do one more. I'll put the link again here, Brooke, to get to these dice and then flash it. Oh, I found a 10. Anyone else see a 10 in there? Right.
Yeah, I'd love to have these in your back pocket, David, just for like, hey, you finish up instruction earlier, you got like 5 minutes left, and instead of just being like, oh, we'll pack up early today, like you can always just have that tab, and such an easy thing to just kind of structure and have students engage with.
Yeah. All right. Drop in the chat. What do we got here? Yeah, Nice. Awesome. 17, right? What I also love about these, this is go kind of beyond fluency a little bit, 86. Yeah, nice. I think there was a 10 up here. That's the first way I saw it. So like we've done this 3 times now. We got 17 twice. I don't know if I were teaching middle school, I might really dive into that. Was that how
Yeah,
likely was that?
that's pretty unlikely, I'd say.
I think so, right? Like, what are the odds of that? So we could again really just do a whole like deep dive on this. Okay, so that's one activity. Again, this is in the Polypad collection, and then there's a link to class openers, warm-ups, and quick games. I'll drop this in the chat. I want to show you one more. Let's see how we can do on this one. This one is called, let's do order the numbers. That's a fun one. So I'm going to click on order the numbers. Here's this activity. Again, these are designed as not student on device. You just want some quick fluency things to pull up in the moment. So the way this works, I'll go to screen 2. This blue button is going to create a random number from 1 through 100. And our challenge is to get them in order after we randomize each one. So let me do a quick example. I'm going to click this button. You see that is 83. So I'll do the first move for us. I'm gonna put this in spot I, and then I'll randomize the next one. Oh, and that's 87. I'm glad I didn't put it in J, so I'm gonna put this here. Now let's do it together. The first letter I see in the chat will be the winner, all right? So let's see how the group of hundreds of us can do here. All right, next number is 19. Where do you want to put that? C, all right, we'll go C. Next one is 14. Yeah, I see 3 B's here. Maybe I'll wait till I see 3 consensus. 24.
D.
Yeah, I think D's right. Let's keep going. Feeling good. Let's go. 12. Does that count as in order? That's a great like conversation to have as a class. Is that okay? Do we count that as a loss? I don't know. Let's say it's okay, right? I'm comfortable with that. All right, let's keep going. 13. Feeling good. There's A. Get a little nervous now, John. I don't know. What are we
Yeah, we
saying?
got a
Let's
big
see.
gap though between 24 and 83. We got a nice range. Oh,
I
that's
know, 93. That's all right. Let's see. 73 is feeling
that'll work.
good. Maybe H. And then 12. All right, not bad.
Yep.
I would give us a 9. So like I would score that as a 9 out of 10. We got 9 of them in the right order. There's a reset button. You could play it again, right? Super fun. You take votes as a class, do them in groups. This is one game board of 1 through 100. Here's one through 1,000. Exact same idea. You just hit the random button and decide where to put them in. And then this one I think is decimal 0 through 1. So
I was gonna say just such a fun way to engage with place value too, as opposed to, like just writing out what is the place value you see, just having to do it in a game, like, a little bit of a game structure, but also just making it fun and having those discussions be really the kind of focal point of the instruction versus, naked fluency in a way that just isn't nearly as inspiring.
yeah, cool. So let me show one more and then I think we can open it up to some questions. Let's do
Maybe right here, David, to point
yeah,
out that although those 3 activities, you can see which one, a couple of these are leveraged kind of as digital, some are print, and those little icons actually have meaning. So, like when you clicked on that, what sum do you see? That was intended to be a teacher facilitated activity, right? Those screens were really for teachers, that present button. However, some of the other screens, like the one we just clicked on last, doesn't have that little print base. So that is something that if you were logged in, you could click that assign button. Students could do this in groups as well. So if you wanted to, hey, say group of 3 on one device, so there's flexibility. You still could always 100% do this as a teacher facilitated, teacher being the holder of technology. But just again, when there was some questions in the chat kind of about that digital print balance and, concerns about screen time, we've really developed a lot of these to be, digital optional. And there's I think a great space and time for when we want to take more teacher ownership and leverage the technology from a teacher perspective, or when it might make sense if you have a differentiation block and you just want to give students something that they can do more independently. That's another great time to weave fluency in using some of these openers, games, etc. So I love that balance.
yeah, thank you for that add-on. That's great. All right, let me just do one more. Let's do balancing the scale. This is a fun one as well. So there's like a little intro which I can talk through. So I'll just go right to screen 3. Again, this is designed for teacher to present. And similar in that we have the dice. I'm going to roll the dice. And the challenge here is to balance the scale with these number bars. So I could just, I see a 6 and a 6 and a 2 on the bottom, and then 3, 1, and 1 is 5. That should balance. There we go. I balanced it. So that's how it works. You can see we get this feedback on the balance scale that it's equal. If I put on too much, we get the greater than sign, which is sort of a nice just moment to point that out to students. If it's too less, we have a less than sign. But after a few just rounds of how it works, I mean, that might be appropriate for K1, just balance it any way you like. But the challenge that I like to give here, let me hit the reset button and roll them again. Here's the question. Oh, this is a great example to get for this use case. Can we balance the scale without using any of the numbers that we see on the dice? So I need to balance the scale, but we can use a 1, 3, 4, 5, or 6, which eliminates a lot of numbers. That's why I was happy when I rolled these. We got a lot of variety. So feel free to drop in the chat if you see a way to balance the scale here, but we can't use a 1, 3, 4, 5, or 6. Oh, nice. Does it add up to 20? I hadn't even done it yet. Nice. Awesome. Yeah, you can, sure. Can you use numbers twice? Great question. You can make up that rule as a teacher, right? Your kids might ask that. Okay, what do you think? Do we want to be able to repeat numbers? Let's say yes, because I think that'll make this easier right now. Is it 20? Awesome. Yes, that worked. Great. Yeah, there's a 5, 4, and a 1 is 10, and a 6, 3, and a 1 is 10. Awesome. Is there another way to do it? Could we do a 10, a 10, 9, and 1?
Can't use the 1.
Oh, I can't use the 1. Yeah, thank you. I was going to try to let that breathe for a moment, John, and see if I could.
Sorry, I was too
That's good.
invested.
That's
I
good.
was that kid who was like, you can't do that. You're breaking your own rules, man.
Yeah, I'm breaking my rule. Right. Is there another way? What's could we do an 8 and a 2 maybe?
Yep.
Right. 8 and
Yeah,
a 2, 8 and 2. Yeah. 7. Can do so like what's interesting to me about this one is maybe there's only a few different solutions here. Right. I feel like if you want to extend this as a fluency activity, maybe don't just come up with one solution, come up with as many as you can. I'll put this link in the chat here. A great moment that I just want to share here is I was in a 4th grade teacher's classroom a while ago, doing a couple of these activities, and a student asked, I never got this question before, are there any that aren't possible? Which is like, what an awesome question, right? Like, are there any ways to like roll the dice? And let me just hit the reset button. And where you can't do it. And I was like, what an awesome question. And I looked at the teacher because it was their classroom. And I was like, do we have a moment to explore? The teacher was like, yeah, of course. I was like, all right, like, I don't know the answer, actually. Great question. Go to your white. They had like whiteboards around there. And like, go to your whiteboards and see if you can come up with any that aren't possible. And for like, I don't know, 7 minutes or so, they were like trying to come up with all these combinations and they couldn't find any that weren't possible. And they were,
awesome.
but like they were doing fluency. I mean, it was addition for 4th grade. It wasn't like the most deep fluency for them, but they were really invested into this question. And we weren't able to find one that wasn't possible, but I wasn't also at the point of agreeing with them that it wasn't possible. They were ready to say it is impossible. And I was like, I don't know, we've tried for 6 or 7 minutes. I'm not ready to like lock that in and say it's impossible yet.
Impossible is a big claim. You weren't ready to
Yeah,
make it.
exactly. It's a really big claim. So as we saw with a number of these activities, it can just be used as a simple couple-minute like fluency routine, or you could really extend it to go into all sorts of different places.
Hey, Dave, there was a question about the how sometimes there's some dice don't the corresponding colors don't match the bars in the dice. I was wondering if you've encountered that one before. Like it looked to me like the blue, like maybe 2 or there were some colors that did. Like I'm looking at 4, for example, and 4 in the bars and 4 on the dice are kind of a match. But when I look at 2 and 7, I'm kind of like, ooh, that blue is the same there. So I think there was a question just about that, and I wonder if you have. I wasn't sure if you do. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I just thought that was an interesting.
That's a great question. It's a wonderful question. What is nice about these activities if I log in here, let me just show you really quickly. It's very easy to make a copy of this activity into your account, and you could change the colors yourself. I might take that suggestion and go change the colors on this activity for everybody. I'm not going to do this live, but if you wanted to, there's a copy and edit button here, and that's going to save a copy of this activity to your Amplify Classroom account. And I'm just going to go into edit just to show you how easy this is. And I, as a I could go into this authoring mode on Polypad and I could change the color of that tile to any color that I want. So again, I'm not going to do it on the published version. I don't want to change this live in case I mess up, but really easy for anyone on these free activities just to make a copy and edit it as you like.
Yeah, just on that same editing note, even the lessons that I was showing, more of the complete lessons that are really built for that 45 to 60 minute of instruction. So kind of different use case, but everything is editable. So all of these free lessons, we want to really open up that flexibility to say, hey, this is a starting point. Use it as it makes sense, but ultimately you all out there, you're going to know your students best, your local context better than David or I ever could hope to. And so having that flexibility is something that we as a team really firmly believe in and giving you those tools.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. I think that's getting close to the end of our prepared activities to share. Any other questions that folks have or comments in the chat that we missed?
I think I was kind of monitoring. I think we've been doing a pretty good job, and I think Ryan had a couple add-ons or parting shots he was going to close us out with, and then
Awesome.
maybe stick on for Q&A.
Yeah,
Sounds
I
great.
would say, I think that you guys did a great job at answering the questions as they popped up. I did see a couple questions in the chat that I did answer, but I want to make sure that I give some time to answer as well. There were a lot of questions about assessments and what assessments do we have available at Amplify. If you are looking for a math assessment for K to 8 that's comprehensive full year, you definitely should check out M-Class Math. I do have a link available for you all at the end of this presentation that I'll share with you. But M-Class Math is our full year K to 8 asset-based assessment. If you're familiar with M-Class Dibbles, they're kind of similar. So definitely check out M-Class Math if you're looking for an assessment program. I also saw a lot of questions around Amplify Classroom and what is free and what's not free. Amplify Classroom is full of hundreds of pre-made lessons. Like John said, so many of them are editable. So definitely check those out. Those lessons that are Amplify Desmos Math Try It lessons, those are the ones that are clearly labeled Try It. Those are available previews from our full year K to 12 curriculum, Amplify Desmos Math. I do not believe that there's any intention of any of those lessons going away anytime soon. If they're in there, I believe that they should be free for the long term. So feel free to check those out and use those in your classroom. Other than that, I did not see any new oh, there was one question I did see in the QA. The question about whether or not grade levels can be hidden. And I think probably the answer is no, but maybe like
Depends on the context, but when you assign content as a teacher, you're searching for content. But when you assign it to students, what they see on the student side of things, it would pop up. It's just the lesson title. So if you assign ways to make 10, it's not tagged with like grade 2 from the student perspective. So you could definitely dip in and out of different grade bands or grade levels with specific topics in mind. That's something that we honestly see teachers doing all the time, especially for, revisiting a skill or something you just might want to engage with in a different way. So that's very much an option there. Yeah.
that's so cool because I thought it was going to be the opposite, that students, when it was assigned, were going to be able to see the grade levels.
No, that
Because
was pretty intentional on our part, is we wanted it to be kind of not, if you did dip into different grade levels, that students aren't feeling like, oh, cool, this is from grade 6 and I'm an eighth grader. Like that makes me feel great, right? It's more about like the learning and the content is the goal. So.
well, thank you, John. I would say like some of the activities that David was showing that maybe you would do with your students, but not all of them would be one-to-one on a device. I think a great opportunity there is to just click the full screen before you share your screen with your students, and then they won't see any grade levels that are tied to those specific activities when you do them together with your students in your classroom. I do see another question about certificates of attendance. Yes, if you attended this webinar live, you should get a certificate of attendance from Zoom, and we'll send you the recording in the next day or two from us. So keep an eye out for those emails. That being said, it looks like, we have gotten to all of the questions. And again, thank you all so much for being incredible in the chat. I have just a few resources that I just want to share with all of you before I completely cut you loose. So I'd love for everybody to just take a peek at what we've got going on over here. So if you're looking for more incredible K-5 resources to help engage your students, including some incredible fluency activities, go ahead and check out amplify.com/K5-math. That'll have a bunch of great activities on there, free fluency stuff. Just keep an eye out for those, and you'll find some great stuff in there. If you want to access those free, ready-to-use activities in Amplify Classroom, like John and David showed, head over to amplify.com/classroom. To learn more about Amplify Desmos Math, that's our full year K-12 curriculum, head over to amplify.com/math. And if you're interested in a full year K-8 assessment system, check out MClass Math at amplify.com/mclassmath. Thank you all so much for joining us. You were wonderful. John, David, incredible as always. Thank you, everybody, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Yep. Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone. Bye-bye.